Well, we don't have a fancy intro like we normally do, but that's okay. Happy Thursday. I hope you guys are doing well during the pandemic, and I'm excited. I'm very excited, in fact, because we're putting on a new show tonight for you guys, a whole new show that my friend Maxwell and I decided to come up with, and I am really thrilled. We have a great guest, but Max, we are doing Center Mezzanine. How are you tonight, my friend?
I am excited. I am thrilled to be here. We've been talking about doing this for a while. I think one of the, benefits, Frank, benefits, as it were, of us having all this time is it allows us to go do these projects that we've discussed, and because life has gotten in the way, and now with all this little bit of extra free time, we can put this together. So this show is Center Mezzanine. This is a show all about the magic and wonder of live theater, whether it be Broadway, off-Broadway, cabaret, whether it be regional theater, whether it
touring groups,
whether it be plays, just everything that's on the stage, because that is one of my great passions in life. Just as a little bit about me, I work in the theater a little bit. I produce off-Broadway and Broadway. I produce a lot of cabarets. I invest in shows. It is not my primary job, but I am working towards it being my primary job. And I also just love talking about theater. And so I'm hoping that every time we do this show, we can get a new exciting guest to come on and share their experiences, talk about their journey throughout the theater, maybe let us in on some secrets and just get to know them a little bit.
Yeah, and what's cool is that you and I were both, when we first met, I don't think you and I really realized at the time, because most of the time we met through Twitter, of all things, before we actually started hanging out and really became friends. And all we really talked about was movies. And neither of us really realized how much we both love theater. I mean, if you guys look behind me, you can kind of see over my movie collection, I actually have some of the Broadway window cards for some of my favorite shows, things that Max and I have seen, or even just stuff I've seen without him. But I've always loved theater. And so it was really great to be able to spend time talking that with someone who cared about it as much as I did, because I grew up in Northern California in what was basically a truck stop, and live theater, not really a priority for a lot of the people there. So, it was kind of nice that 25 years later, I found someone who shared that same passion.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is obviously a little different growing up in New York and Florida. I've been very fortunate to be able to attend all sorts of live theater throughout all my life. But to your point, one of my goals in working in the live theater is making it more accessible for all people to be able to see all the different type of shows they want. And of course, I know there are different barriers of entry and there are legitimate financial concerns. It's a conversation for another time, to be certain, but accessibility in live theater is a key component that I think needs to be on the tip of everyone's tongues, especially considering what's going on now and how uncertain the theater world is going to be once it's finally able to reopen after the pandemic's a little bit more under control.
Yeah, and kind of real quick, speaking of the pandemic, that's kind of why this whole channel started. So if you are new here, by the way, thank you for joining us on the PJ Campbell Network. I'm PJ Campbell. We really just started this whole channel with a bunch of different content because of the pandemic. And so this was kind of the perfect time for us to do this. So just real quick, just to give you guys an idea, if you're new here, or even if you're a return listener at this point, just an idea of some of the stuff we have going on. Earlier this week, we actually had Suddenly Soundtracks, which is hosted by the great Chris Clark. He had Robert Meyer Burnett and Kristen Smith talking Singing in the Rain, which was a great episode. I hope you guys go check it out, especially if you love musicals. That is one of our weekly regular shows here. We also had an episode of Famous Last Words with Evan DeGraff. He does a one-on-one interview show with a bunch of different people in the space. That is a lot of fun. And we also do watch-alongs here Mondays and Fridays. Tomorrow night, if you love Rian Johnson or Star Wars, you're going to want to tune in, because we're going to be doing a Last Jedi watch along. Frank Janish, myself, a lot of the cast of characters you used to seeing on the channel will all be there talking one of my favorite films and one of the most divisive films maybe in the entire Star Wars canon. And then on Monday, Atlantis, The Lost Empire, we are going to be doing an animated watch along for, at least for me, I think one of the most underappreciated Disney films in their animated canon. So we have a lot going on. That's just kind of the tip of the iceberg of everything. But I'm really excited, man. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up.
Yeah, it's an exciting time on the network, but I think that's enough about us. Let's talk a
Yes,
little
it
bit about
is.
our guest before we get him on. So, our guest tonight is Preston Max Allen, who I think is one of the most exciting and talented young musical theater writers on the scene right now. I first became aware of him with his musical We Are the Tigers, which I saw a couple times at the theater at St. Mark's. It is a cheerleader slasher musical. It's heavily inspired by horror, and it was just absolutely wonderful. And from there, Preston and I met, and we started a little friendship. So let's get him on.
Yeah, absolutely. So with further ado, we are here with our friend now, Preston. Hello.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. It is a sheer delight.
We could not be more thrilled to have you. Thank you again for saying yes. Like, this is, again, I kind of told you off mic, like, I was so excited that we had you because I had heard so much about you over the last couple of years through Maxwell. Like, you and we've never met, which was surprising because I tend to meet a lot of the people in and around the group whenever I'm in New York. So I'm just excited you're here. Thank you again for saying yes.
Oh, yeah.
How are you doing in general? I know it's been a little bit of a tough time for everyone.
Oh, it's a day to day. You know, one day I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get everything done that I've ever wanted to do in my life. And then I do like 3 things and I'm like, that's enough. And then some days I wake up and I'm like, this isn't going to be a day, and I'm going to watch TV all day. And then tomorrow hopefully will be a day. So that's kind of been my balance of energies. I have a beautiful cat who's been keeping me amazing company. I have a lovely roommate. We've been watching Black Mirror.
Oh.
She's never seen it before. It's like one of my favorite shows. So that's been very fun. You know, underneath of course, there's, you know, the existential fear, but we're covering it with some glitter.
I feel like we're all kind of dealing with that existential terror right now of everything happening around us, especially as, you know, people in higher positions keep making really terrible moves and kind of setting us back a little bit. But, you know, thankfully we all have each other to get through it. At least I hope.
And also, before we dive into some of our questions and discussion, it was announced today that your play Modern Gentleman was selected for Pride Plays. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy about that. I have not done much work in the play world. I've never had a play produced, so it's going to be very exciting to kind of get to work on something.
Can you share a little bit about the play, or is it under wraps at this point?
I can share a little bit about it. It is very much about a trans man whose fiance and him and their relationship and are kind of navigating the fallout of that. And she considers herself a lesbian, and it's very much about kind of the relationships and labels and sexual identities and how they shift and how they stay the same during transition. And yeah, it's grown with me. So some of the conversations have been able to like change and mature with me. And the director on that, Blaze Teicher, is a great friend and a very brilliant artist. So she's made it a very safe space to work on it, because it can get, you know, I don't write necessarily extremely personal things. I was not an evil cheerleader. I was a cheerleader for 2 days, and then the girl I had a crush on quit, so I quit too.
As you do.
Literally as and so this one is a little bit more about stuff that I actually feel kind of personal about and deal with. So we'll see how that goes.
Have you been working on it for a while now?
I started it 2 years ago, and as all my plays do, it sat on my laptop for a long time. And I'm in the Ars Nova play group, working within that group, which has been really, really wonderful and helped a lot, like certainly with my confidence in playwriting. So it's definitely been a boost going into this experience.
And I assume because of what's going on, this is going to be done via Zoom or some other sort of online platform.
Yes.
How do you feel about that, doing theater through live stream?
You know, I really understand that people have a lot of varying feelings on it day to day. You know, I won't be offended if anyone's like, today is not a day I can do a Zoom reading. I totally get it. I, of course, want to keep working, and this is the way to do it right now. So I'm going to be energized for it, and I'm going to try to create a very energized Zoom space. And I know everyone on Pride Plays is, and I think it'll be the most energized Zoom space you could probably find. So I feel really good about that. And the team has been really, really wonderful and very realistic and very healthy and honest about how everything's functioning. So yeah, I think it's being handled like as well as it possibly could under the circumstances.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about theater people is their ability to make things work no matter what the circumstances are. You know, we're very lucky to have the internet and video chat and the ability to do this, and not all industries can make that work for them. But I think it's exciting that we're keeping the business of show in motion in every way we can. Like, I don't know if you watched the live stream they did last week or earlier this week of Significant Other.
No, I saw it like through Twitter clips afterwards, but
yeah, it's just exciting that they're still finding ways to get the work done and entertain people, and you know, in a lot of these cases, raise money for a good cause as well.
I've liked that. Oh, sorry, not to step on what I was going to say. I think that a lot of our kind of space in general has done that. Like, if you look at what NBC was able to do with Saturday Night Live, or even Parks and Rec also, like, they were all raising money for really great causes and trying to find a way to put on a show. And I think it's really amazing that Preston, that you guys are doing the same thing. Like, it just, especially with your energy and the things you write, it's just such a cool thing. And I love seeing you doing that.
We're trying to meet things where they are. I have 3 things that I'm working on, and they're all kind of trying out a different angle of this experience. So
Sure.
One is Pride Plays, and that's going to be online. And then another is my team for another show of mine and I are trying to work on a concept album remotely. We have a team member who can fully record instrumental parts and from her place. So we're going to hopefully release a concept album, and then a show I'm writing with a collaborator right now is hopefully going to be like a radio play. So we're going to try to model it after that.
That
Very
is
cool.
That is awesome. I grew up listening to a lot of like old radio serials of things like The Shadow. Legitimately, some of those are my favorite. And even Doctor Who. I'm a massive Doctor Who fan. Like, I love science fiction and horror. And so I grew up watching Doctor Who. And for like a good 20 years now, they've been doing audio dramas. And some of those are my favorite things in the entire world. So I love that you're jumping into that space.
I'm excited about it, especially because it's Edward Precht is the playwright, and Maxwell knows Edward because you are on our Netflix Christmas musical team.
Yeah.
And he's a very brilliant, and like his sense of humor is very like dark and unexpected, and it lives a lot in the stage direction. So you don't get to like see it when it's on stage. So I'm very excited that people will get to like hear the comedy that lives in his work that you don't normally get to see, which is very exciting to me because I truly can never predict what he's going to say next.
That is exciting, and you're right. He has a very unique and wonderful sense of humor.
I love it.
Yeah. So let's hop in a time machine and travel back to young Preston. So when you're a child, when you're growing up, when did you first get interested in musical theater and music, and when did it seem like this is a industry that might be of interest to you?
I was always very, very, I can't remember like not being interested in it. Like the first part I ever wanted to be ill-advised was Simba when I was very young. It wouldn't work, but I wasn't clocking that. And my dad writes musicals and loves musicals and grew up in New York. And my mom was an actress all growing up and is now a cantor. So it's a very performative family. And so I was always going to shows. Apparently my first show was Grease when I was 2. I do not remember that. I think when I was like 4 or something, I saw Peter Pan. So there's always like a steady stream of art. Kind of the best way I can describe it is I didn't know plays were on Broadway until I was in my teens, because my dad would like present to us our options for traveling to New York, and he just didn't want to see plays because he loves musicals.
Sure.
So at one point I was like, Dad, there's plays on Broadway. He's like, shh, we can't know. So that was my whole thing. I did a lot of performance growing up. I did performance, and then in my spare time, not thinking of it as a career, I wrote extremely like twisted screenplays and novels for a child. So I'm the youngest, so there was a lot of like Law and Order playing in the background of my life, and I think I absorbed that.
Okay.
And that was a lot of my early work.
Hey, we all start somewhere. Law and Order is a great inspiration for many murder-driven stories for whole generations. Those shows have been running for 20, 30 years. You mentioned your mom was a cantor now, and that was actually something I wanted to bring up. I was curious if your religion or your religious experience with your family had any part in shaping you, or is an aspect of your life that you find relevant to the work you produce?
I will say, to answer that question, and I also think my mom is watching, so like, hi Mom, I love you, and I love you so much. My connection to Judaism is very heavily rooted in my connection to my family. So we grew up, Shabbat, as much as I didn't necessarily love as a child, we were very observant. My family is conservative and I'm much more reformed now. But we grew up kosher. grew up very conservative, Shomer Shabbos. So like we spent, a day and a half together, like with no screens and everything. And I was very bitter about that as a youth who wanted to play The Sims. But
Fair.
now it's very clear that it connected us in a very definitely like spiritual way that I am able to appreciate now. And it does, I'm very fueled by the love and support that I have from my family, and it's gotten me through a lot. So I think that in that respect, like the culture and the spirituality that I was surrounded by was very formative and continues to be a very important part of my life.
And I believe you grew up in Texas.
A great place to grow up Jewish and extremely cool.
Yeah, I'm sure at times there's a bit of culture shock.
Yeah, it was my whole life. So it was until I was 17. So there wasn't anything to compare it to. I was always just like, there are very few Jews. Everyone's very Christian, and we're kind of swimming upstream in a lot of ways. But I was also really lucky in that we were never. I personally was very welcomed by a lot of the people in my community. There was not a lot of, I did not face a whole lot of adversity in my queerness and in my Jewishness growing up where I did, which was Fort Worth, Texas, to anyone who's geographically curious. I went to an art school for high school, I was certainly not the only queer person. I was very well taken care of in a way I'm very lucky for, that I am sure is unique, and I wish that everyone could have that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, especially in a state like Texas where it's very predominantly known to be probably like a redder state, that you wouldn't necessarily get that chance. So it's really awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure if I had the, combative debate tools I have now, I could have learned some very disturbing things probably about people in my life, and we probably would have gotten into some vivid chats, but we didn't, and everyone I think is very peaceful. And I'm actually still, the relationships I have via social media with people from high school and middle school is very peaceful and respectful. No one's started anything. It's been really comforting to see that.
That's great. Yeah. That's sort of the dream, to be queer and young and live in a community where you're supported and don't face too much adversity. I wish everyone was so fortunate. I do too. I think it was different even, within my own family. I'm one of 3 queer siblings. Oh, wow.
All my siblings.
That's so fascinating.
It is. I partially, what I attribute it to is my family's always been very like, whatever you are, whoever you are is totally fine. For a while it was like, as long as you are at least very open to Jewish partners, whoever they may be. But now my family is very much, as long as you are with a respectful and loving partner, that is what matters. So I think there was so much just like, be who you are and we'll accept who you are, that I think if that existed more, a lot more families would probably just be very queer, because there would be so much less limitation on how free people felt they could be.
So do you have strong thoughts on nature versus nurture then, considering your experience and your siblings?
I think that there is no choice about queerness necessarily, but I think that nurture unlocks the doors to how comfortable you feel, and sometimes those doors never get unlocked based on how someone was raised.
Makes sense. Yeah. So you mentioned you were in a performing arts high school, music high school?
Yeah, all arts. All arts. Yes. The hospital-ish in terms of housing.
So were you performing in musicals?
I was.
What were some of your favorite roles? What stands out?
I was there for 3 years, and my first year I wasn't in anything, I guess. But I was in Sound of Music. I was Sister Berta, who was the sister who's like, fuck Maria.
Right. Yes.
She's a mess. I enjoyed that. I knew my limit. Like I knew where I lived as an artist. So I like sat out, like I was like, I'm going to audition for a nun. I could maybe get a nun. I'm not going to be Liesel. I'm going to go for a nun. And I got it. So,
right.
A big moment in my life was when I went from being like, I'm not Eponine, I'm Madame Thénardier. And then later I was like, no, I'm some boy in the back of the rebels. So that was my first my first shining moment in high school. And then I was Ilona in She Loves Me.
Oh, that's such a great underseen show, I think.
I agree. And then when it came back and Jane Krakowski was Ilona, everyone finally was privy to my big high school success, which I somehow got that role.
Yeah, she was pretty great in that role too, I thought.
Was she as good as me?
Knowing you, the answer is no, but I really don't have a basis of comparison. If you have video footage you want to send my way, I'll be happy to write a thorough review comparing you to Jane Krakowski.
We could do a full video review here on the channel of it.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm trying to actually find a video because I really want us to do Disney Encore, because I have this fantasy where I play George. Because
cool.
The boy who played George did not respond to my outreach about participating in Disney Encore, which means now we get the drama of re-auditioning that role, and I'm ready.
That would be thrilling. I think you can make that happen. I have faith.
I think so. Disney is surprising to when and how they decide like queer inclusion is going to work out for them, but I think they're ready. I think they would embrace it.
They do actually have a new Pixar short coming online tomorrow about a young queer boy trying to figure out how to come out to his parents.
We love to see it.
I'm excited to watch that tomorrow. Okay, so high school, you're doing musicals. You're coming to a comfortable level with what sort of roles you think you fit in, and then do you go to college?
I do go to college. On the wings of my Ilona victory, because I was nominated for a Betty Buckley Award, which is
my God. That is so thrilling.
And Wendy from Peter Pan won.
Oh,
of course.
I wish her well. But I don't hold that against her.
Wherever she may be.
For she is. I hope she's okay. But I was like, I got nominated for an award for a role I played in high school. I should definitely major in musical theater in college. That'll be it. Because I was between going to Columbia College in Chicago for performance and then USC for film.
Okay.
I'd gotten into their screenwriting program, and I decided that I wanted to, live in a city where I could walk, and I have a lot of family in Chicago, and I was, like I said, very energized by my nomination, and I went, I think that I will have more fun doing this. I really loved writing. I had written, and we'd produced at my high school 2 one-act musicals that I had done book and lyrics for, and I felt that if I majored in it, I would like it less, and that it would kind of knock the love for it out of me. So I did choose Columbia College. I went there for a performance, and then changed majors so many times.
What did you end up deciding on for the last time you switched?
We don't know.
No. It's a mystery?
It is a mystery how I got this. I technically majored in theater acting without ever having played a role in college.
Okay.
I chose my school predominantly for its connection to Second City. There's a crossover program called the Comedy Studies program. Now they have a comedy major. I was not there for that.
Oh, wow.
I'm also not funny enough to major in comedy.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
It would scare me to major. Can you imagine being like, I majored in comedy? Like there are so many people who can handle that, and I am 100% not one of them.
That's fair. Knowing what you could be comfortable with is legitimate. That's fair. But for the record, I do think you are quite hilarious.
I'm not making fun of those people.
No.
Incredibly brave.
I mean, you putting yourself out there in any sort of comedy, in general, putting yourself out there is crazy, but like comedy especially, because you can fall flat so quickly. I mean, you look at some of the greats like John Candy or John Belushi or, Chris Farley. Like, for me, those are some of the ones that always stand out. But I mean,
all the beautiful big boys.
Right. And they left us too soon, and they were performing as comedians from like the day they were born. You listen to those stories. They always knew they were going to be comedians. I don't think you could just become one sometimes. Like, I feel like you were born to almost do it. So, it's amazing that you were able to do that and be like, you know what, I may not be that comfortable with that, so let me go a different direction.
And I'm very cerebral, and I had a lot of trouble with clowning, and that kind of ruined a lot of my experience.
Well, so much of clowning is being able to just put your inhibitions to the side and go for it, and that is very scary for anybody.
And we had a multi-week clowning lesson that I was very bad at, and it was very formative for me how bad I was at clowning, and I had to leave comedy for a while and retreat into the darkness of a bunch of like teenage belting girls who wear flannel.
We can't all be Bill Irwin, you know? So you said you got your major in performance without ever having played a role. So is this around the time when you started thinking that you were going to predominantly write as opposed to perform?
Yes. So this is where the crossover of like high school and the roles I was playing and writing and transitioning kind of, because I had not grown up around any trans people, and I had a very specific relationship with my body by the time I got to college and like met my trans community, and was very sure of what my problems with my body were, that were not gender related, but were very related to society and women in entertainment and the unfair expectations, and that was kind of where my head was at. But to speak to the writing side of it, I, in college, became really uncomfortable with performing. I just like couldn't do like the college major kind of sets you up to be very prepared to be in the chorus, as it should, which is great. But I was a terrible chorus girl for multiple reasons, and it just was not working as a career kind of in a structured environment, and not just me kind of like going out for the roles I wanted. And I felt really uncomfortable. And so under my major in performance, I started working on Tigers as a way to like kind of go to what I was comfortable doing. And I was really comfortable writing for women because I was in these programs and going, I can't do this. I don't want to do this, but there's incredible women in this program and I would love to write for them.
Yeah.
And I know I enjoy doing that. So I would hold like a reading once a year of the early drafts of Tigers in school. And so that became where I was so comfortable. And then I graduated a year early and decided, like the month I was graduating, we decided to do a student production of it, real quick and fast and loose. And that was the most probably important experience I had in college. And I'm very thankful for it. As painful as everything was, and as like, honestly, I blocked out a lot of it because I was going through a lot of like physical and emotional discomfort. There are many shining moments of theatrical community that were very healing for me, and also very stressful, but in a way that like, there's the stress where there's a lot of disconnect in the blocking out, and then there's the stress where you're like, oh, I can work through this with my community, and those were the best moments for sure. So
Tigers was like the first full show you ever started putting together?
Yes, the other two, like I said, had been one acts that I had done.
Okay.
One was a pilot of a TV show, and then one was a mystery dinner theater.
Oh, that's
so cool.
I like a good mystery dinner theater.
Okay. It was actually really clever. I'm very proud of it. And the composer on that in high school, my friend Nico Gutierrez, is a wonderful composer who's now out and about and working.
Oh, that's great. Do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
My sister would. It was something, I had broken my leg when I was 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
Always on drugs. I fractured my femur. It was like a really bad break. And apparently I wrote like a 15-verse song that involved being a burglar and stealing paintings from someone's house, which is really only going out to my sister. So if she's not watching, you're all like, what are you talking about? But it was like this, like, it had a chorus like this and was like 15 verses long. And I would just sing it on drugs in my, body cast I was in. So that was the first song I wrote. But the first like actual song I like was like, this is my song, is a love song to Zac Efron that is on YouTube.
Oh, wow. What's it called?
Ode to Efron?
Oh, I mean,
Ode to Zac Efron?
We love a literal title.
I mean, I knew what I was going for, and I didn't bullshit.
Has he heard it, Mr. Efron?
Mr. Efron does not know I'm a person.
No, you never know for sure.
We'll have to light up the internet to make sure he sees it soon, because I think that's very, very important.
I think it's important too. I think he'd really enjoy it.
Maybe better if he doesn't. It is actually the most Jewish thing I've written. There's a lot of references to us like spending Hanukkah together, or they might be slightly sexual Hanukkah references.
Sexual Hanukkah.
I think there's some sexual Hanukkah references.
I feel like there's a whole like undiscovered genre of sexual Hanukkah songs that we need to tap into.
Well, we've got the Christmas show. It's time for sexy Hanukkah.
We do. Okay, so
would you be comfortable real quick with me sharing that ode to Zac Efron to the chat if they wanted to watch it? I did. I found it. It is on YouTube.
If people want to watch it, by all means, I had terrible sound quality and no idea how to make a video, but I had a lot of heart.
Heart is like 2/3 of the equation, in my opinion.
November 1st, 2008, with 799 views right now currently.
We're gonna get you over 800 by sharing it to the chat.
Yeah, it's over 800. I want 801, and then I want to stop.
That's it. It's reached its maximum audience. So that link is now in the chat if anyone want to check out Preston Max Allen's Ode to Efron. Okay, so you did some like student workshops of We Are the Tigers in college. So when you're done with college, do you immediately go to work on trying to get a full-scale production mounted?
When I left college, I was still very much with Second City, and I was in their conservatory and their music improv conservatory.
Okay.
So I was intending to like do the improv thing as like a career, like the SNL track.
You dreamed of being on SNL?
I think I like dreamt of it in a way where I thought it should be a goal of mine, but I wasn't passionate about it.
Okay.
That said, in 10 years, I'd love to be a guest. I'm very passionate about that. So I don't want to be blacklisted. But I did not have the spirit to do it. And so very quickly, I was working at Trader Joe's, which I did enjoy. It was a lovely place to work. But I was working at Trader Joe's, and I was doing the conservatory. And I was trying to figure out how to put Tigers on potentially in Chicago. And I've learned a lot since then about this. But at the time, it was really just like, to do a new musical, you rent a theater and you do it. And I wasn't fully prepared for that. And so that was getting, it was expensive. I knew the show needed a lot of work. Ultimately, I called a friend who I had who had directed my shows in high school, Raleigh, my longtime best friend. And I was like, if I move to New York, because he was here, I was like, if I move to New York and I just like drop everything here, can we work on Tigers? And he had a lot of connection and resources and knew how to do this stuff. And he said yes. And I pretty much dropped everything and moved to New York and got a part-time job house managing at Soho Playhouse and spent a long time there. And we did our like DIY reading of Tigers that we rented a theater for. And we did a free backstage. We got one of those free backstage coupons to like go around. I actually met some really close friends from that reading. I learned, so we didn't have sheet music. I played guitar, but someone was in the room who liked it and then produced an industry reading of it. And it kind of just went from there, which was very, a lot of it was luck of who was there. And a lot of it was, talent, hopefully, and strategy and trying to put our best foot forward and be smart about how we were working. And I'm proud of that journey. It was a very long journey. It continues to be very long.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, this industry can be very interesting to navigate kind of on any side, whether it's the theatrical side, the TV side, the Broadway side. So even getting something presented in front of someone can be such hard work. And so it's amazing that you were able to really get to that point where it was like someone saw it and was like, you know what, this is good. Like, let's do something with that. Like, what a great moment for you. Like, do you remember what it felt like in that moment to have that happen?
So this was also pre-transition. So I was still going through a lot of stuff. There's a lot of personal stuff that made confidence really difficult and happiness very difficult. And a lot of what I was going through during this, which I do regret, was I was really scared that every good thing would be the last good thing.
Sure.
So I remember that first industry reading, I was working with a lot of my musical theater heroes. And I was really I was viscerally scared that nothing that good would ever happen again. And I wish I could go back and be like, buddy, calm down. But I'm very good at sabotaging my positive energy. And I was really good at it back then, especially. So I was just kind of nervous a lot that I was walking on eggshells. And I should have had a lot more trust in the people in my life than myself. And I now I do, and I've learned that. And the self-exploration was really helpful. But now I can look back and be like, okay, I'm in this world, and I earned my place here, and I didn't do it alone, certainly. And I can acknowledge that hundreds of people who've helped me, and it feels better.
That's amazing. I want to talk more about Tigers, but I just want to backtrack a little bit to second stage. Were you doing sketch or improv or both?
Oh, at Second City?
Yeah, at Second City. Sorry.
I was doing improv.
Okay.
But the program was the program within my school was like 5 different classes. So it was like sketch writing, improv, acting, clowning.
Favorite.
And so that was like the all encompassing. And then when I came back, when I was doing the conservatory, it was improv and sketch and music improv. And I love music improv. I continue to. And that was really my home base.
We got to get you hooked up with Wayne Brady.
Wayne, I'm here. I'm ready. But that's also how I write music now. So like, I'll sit at my piano and I'll play the chords and like scream and record it and see what happens. So it has been really helpful. But yeah, now I look back at it now and I can't imagine doing it again. Like, it's very scary. Like I said, you have to be very brave to do it. I lost some of that. I've learned where I'm really confident, and then I don't necessarily want to put myself in positions where I'm not anymore.
You sort of answered my follow-up question, which was, were there skills you felt you learned there that impacted the way you write now, or how you look at comedy, how you construct jokes in the books of your shows?
Yeah, I mean, Second City is very much about like the long game. So it's not about like the one joke. It's very much about, building character and building cadence and, the 3 beats of a joke. And it's very cerebral. And I appreciated that. When I was little, I didn't quite understand it because we would go to their shows and I was like, what is this? So
you were doing like heralds?
Yeah, a little bit. And
a herald is like a long form improv for those who don't know.
And there, that was like where I was leaving, kind of at the start of.
Sure.
But and it's very much about world building more than it is about comedy. I think there's so much natural comedy in existing kind of like awkwardly, and so when you mine that in a kind of brilliant way, that's the best improv, where you embrace awkwardness and you embrace kind of diving into nothingness. And some days I'm really good at that, and some days I'm not. And to have that career, you have to be prepared to do it all the time. But when you're writing, you only have to do it when you're ready.
True enough. So you have your industry reading of Tigers. Is this when you now go to the Hudson Backstage Theater in LA?
Yes, we had some team switch over between that industry and the next industry reading. And from there on, the director Michael Bello and music director Patrick Stolkin, who was the music supervisor on Tigers off Broadway, we ended up meeting in the next iteration, the 2015, and from then on we did a reading, we did a concert, and then the producer from that and us went to LA to try it out, and that was a journey. We love learning by experience and then looking back and assessing. We were all like really young, and it was a lot of our like first big thing, and I think that was so good for us in a lot of ways, and I think we learned a lot in a lot of ways. And it was it's very special to bring a show to life like that. It's very scary too. Like it's as special as it is scary.
How long was the run there?
6 weeks.
Oh wow, that's a nice run.
Yeah, I think it was a 6 week over Halloween, which was really great.
That's perfect.
What a perfect time. Yeah, I was going to say, because I mean, it's very horror based in the right way. So that's the perfect time to run it.
And it was great for me because I got to go to horror nights, which I loved. And then I got to see the immersive movie in LA. We love that immersive. I love Carrie very, very, very much. And
we'll get to Carrie, don't worry.
Great. Oh my God, you don't. But yeah, I got to see that version in LA. So there was a lot of good things in it for me. And yeah, it's also one of those things where I was going through a lot personally, and I wish that I had been more open, and I had been more kind to myself, and I had let myself experience joy a little bit more.
Sure.
But the people around me, I put up with a lot and didn't know they were, and the way in which I was respected by them was very valuable to me.
That's fair. So how long is there in between the LA production and then the New York production at the St. Mark's Theater?
4 years, 3.5, 4 years.
Okay, so what are you doing in that gap?
Oh my God. Okay. Tigers wise, we did a reading in 2017. That was the only thing that happened for Tigers. And then we didn't revisit until, is that true? Yes, I think that's true. It might not be true. But I think Tigers kind of went away for a while. And I was working on another 3 shows. The year after that, I wrote The Rage, Carrie 2, an unauthorized musical parody.
Yeah.
It was pretty much right after Tigers, and like a few months later I had gotten back and I was like, I'm not really doing anything. My good friend Jenny Baker was in Fiddler and had, days free and stuff like that, and has a killer rock voice, and we vibed really well together. So we met one day and I was like, what if I wrote The Rage, Carrie 2 as a musical, and you were in it? And she's like, great. And so I started it in April, and then we did it in October of that year. So that was 2016, the joys of 2016. And then 2016, 2017, I was working on a show called Never Better, which was called Remission at the time. It's now Never Better, all the same show. That is very different. It's about a college student who is diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia and is not close with her family, and is dealing with that alone and having a hard time with that experience. It's very much more like a character study musical, the 10 days of her life from her diagnosis to her choice whether or not to treat herself. So very different energies, which I love doing. I love having a project that is kind of serious and takes a lot out of me. And then also when I don't want to work on it, like Carrie 2, where I can, write a screaming ballad for Sue Snell and go to bed. So that was a successful year for me. And then the next year I started developing on top of those things. Carrie 2 is pretty much set. It lives as a concert musical that we do every year, and Maxwell and I have worked on, and we learn different exciting ways to do it every year, and encourage other people to license it too as a part of it. So that's pretty much what it is. And then Never Better is kind of getting pretty majorly reworked. That is affected a little bit by the pandemic and the situation we're in.
Sure.
So I've pocketed that. I also got a lot of notes that was too sad. So no one necessarily ran to that devastating musical. And then my partner, Jessica Kokoska, and I, my writing partner, started developing in 2017. Yeah, 2017, Agent 355, which is one of my favorite babies. It is a rock punk musical about the unidentified female spy in the American Revolution. If there are fans of the show Turn out there, AMC Turn, the Culper Ring had Agent 355 in it. It's a reference to a letter where they mention this woman. 355 is the code for lady, but there's no way to find out who she was in history. That she kind of got buried, and there's a lot of guessing who she is in the blogosphere, and a lot of it's very romanticized, a lot of it's kind of sexualized, and so this show kind of works through how those rumors came to be and who this woman really might have been, in the form of a punk band, kind of deconstructing all these theories and exploring each woman kind of chapter by chapter. My favorite way to explain it, this might be the crowd where it works, is it is similar in a few ways to the musical Six. And if you've seen the Ashley O episode of Black Mirror, which is the Miley Cyrus episode.
Yes.
I think of it as like 6 is Ashley O, and 355 is when she becomes like a basement grunge.
That's awesome.
So that's been a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot from 6 too, which has been really great. It's been great to kind of I didn't know about it when we were writing this show, but now we kind of can look at it and go like, oh, we're friends. We're in the same world of exploring the untold stories of women and reclaiming their journeys. And, I'm happy to be a part of that. And I hope that's embraced.
What a perfect time to do like a historical based musical, because to your point, 6 or look at Hamilton, like people love stuff like that, even to a point like Come From Away. It has a similar vibe with the 9/11 stuff, so for you to really dive into that side of unexplored history almost is fascinating to me. I love that.
Thank you. I hope that's the one that we're trying to do the concept album for. I think we will succeed. I say try. I think it will very much happen. We've just had such a wonderful experience with that. That team is all, there's no cis men on that team in the room. It's been a great experience to kind of just have a group of women and trans people and non-binary people kind of building this show together. That certainly does not have to be all my rooms. I have many, many wonderful cis men I work with, but it's been a very special space. And when we started writing it, we're like, oh, they need to play all the instruments. They need to play multiple instruments. So I wonder how we'll get this cast together. It turns out there is no end to like extremely talented women and trans people who can play endless instruments and scream their faces off and act like champions. So we have a great group of people who we've been involved with, and I'm very lucky to know like every single one of them.
That's amazing. I love everything about that.
I'm so intrigued by that show, and it's exciting to hear you're doing a concept album, because I almost feel like nowadays sort of starting by putting a concept out there is a very legitimate way to then get it staged thereafter.
Yeah,
Introduce the music and the work to a larger audience versus just mounting a production.
and like right now is the time where people might be wanting a new score or interested in a story that isn't out there right now, and theater's not able to put out as much. And I'm really proud of the score, and I really love this team, and I really believe in it. So it'll be nice to put it more out there. It's so punk. It's so my power chord world, with some twists of like Taylor Swift and some quieter acoustic moments. And I want it to be out there. It's it's tough when you love something so much, but the way that theater works is it takes years and years and years.
It does.
So now
totally.
years and years, and then a pandemic, and then years and years and years. But there's a lot of optimism in the group. So
great. So let's jump back a little bit to Carrie 2. I know you have a bit of an obsession with Carrie at large, both the movie, the sequel movie, Carrie the musical. Where does that come from? Why do you love Carrie so much, and why did you decide you wanted to write a sequel musical to Carrie?
So I was actually thinking about this psychologically yesterday. I was like, why are you so... I've always been really obsessed with Carrie, especially now. I think I'm really needing a coping mechanism, something that comforts me. And instead of rewatching a TV show when I'm very dedicated, I would rewatch Buffy or I would rewatch Parks and Recreation. And for some reason in the same world of that is spending my time exploring the variations of Carrie and the variances in performance and the different ways people play different characters. And then also the differences between the book and the movie and both iterations of the musical and all the 3 different versions of the movie. So that is what I've decided to focus my energy on during this uncertain and terrifying time. It's a safe thing to do. No one's getting hurt. I also have a wonderful friend, Karen, who is one of my best friends in the world. And we have decided to, with this energy, host the Carries, which should hopefully be the same night as the Tonys. We have a lot more versions to watch, but we're watching every available musical version on YouTube, and then we're going to give awards out for them.
Wow,
so, that's incredible.
So I realized yesterday, I was having a really bad day, and I was like, I need to calm down a little, and decided to on my own watch a Carrie because Karen was unavailable. And I was like, why are you doing this? It was the first horror movie I ever saw, I realized.
Oh.
And I think that puts a lot together. It was the first horror movie. I was, I think, in 6th grade. I watched Buffy at that point, but it was the first iconic. I was reading a lot of Stephen King. It was one of the first adult novels I read, and I think it's just lives in my soul, is very important to me.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely right now very fascinated, just as someone who wants to work in adaptation, by the many different choices that have been made with the property. Mm-hmm. So now from that angle, from that creative angle, I'm exploring okay, why was this choice made versus why was this cut versus why does this character play this way versus why does Carrie live at the end of the 2002 TV movie? Spoilers, she lives.
Yeah, that was what was that? I think it was a failed pilot movie, essentially, for a TV show that never got off the ground, which was always so fascinating to me because, similar to you, I've grown up loving horror my whole life. Right now, I'm wearing a John Carpenter shirt for The Fog. My entire wardrobe is basically just horror stuff. So I've always loved that. And every time we would talk about the Carrie musical, I always was specifically, what is it about Carrie 2? Of all the things, Carrie 2, and what was it that drew you to that?
Oh, Carrie 2. So I was having drinks with a friend, and we and I were talking, and she's like, I just did the Carrie. She had done a version of Carrie that I had been near in Provincetown and had not been able to see. I was like, oh my God. And we were having a creative meeting, and I was like, my biggest dream in the world would be to rewrite the Carrie musical. Not rewrite it, but do my own version of the Carrie musical.
Sure.
It's an interesting, there's a lot of it that really works. There's some of it that I would love to just get in there. But I know I can't do that. I know that is legally off the table for me. And so in that conversation, I was like, oh, but you know what I could do? Of course, throughout our friendship, Karen and I had at one point watched The Rage Carrie 2. And I was like, oh,
theatrically released a movie, by the way.
The 1999 theatrically released legitimate sequel of Carrie that features clips from Carrie. People do not realize it's real.
No, they don't.
But it's brilliant. And in that meeting, I was like, oh, I could absolutely write a parody musical of The Rage Carrie 2, and nothing is stopping me from that. And nothing did. I went home that night, and My Dog was the first song that I wrote, and I wrote it all in like a week, and then I put it away, and then I edited it a month before we did it at 54 Below. It was bursting out of me. I don't usually write that fast, but the Rage Carey too. And I love it. I think I have the right balance of appreciating the culture of Carey and also being able to have fun with it respectfully and within some limits of respect.
Of course.
But it's I'm very proud of it.
I love that. Do you have any idea? I mean, I know that. Does Stephen King know this exists? Because I would love to know his thoughts that there's actually like a Rage Carey musical out there.
I don't know. I don't know if I can say this. It's fine. I who doesn't sometimes. Some people probably don't, but like do a little bit of edibles during this pandemic. And
absolutely.
Yeah, great. Okay, we're going to acknowledge that. So yesterday I had a little bit of an edible to watch Carey, and I didn't feel stoned at all. This one works much more as CBD. But I was filled with the idea that I could genuinely contact Stephen King to ask him if I could do the rights for Carey as a stage play. That's my new goal.
He is notorious for being like, yes, absolutely, in a lot of ways with his rights.
I hope so. I woke up this morning and I went, maybe As Sure As You Were Last Night isn't realistic. I was like, I'm just going to email him. It's going to be great. But now I'm like, okay, if I can get those rights, I don't think he knows the Rage Carey 2 exists as a musical. He probably knows the movie.
Well,
But, if I get my way, that was my goal. Is I love this property so much. I feel like I'm the right voice to be a part of it in some ways. There's so many things I'm not the right voice for. So many. This is not one of them. And I just wanted to insert myself into the canon of Carey.
Guys, I want you, if you're watching, like once this is done, share this link and we'll tag Stephen King on Twitter and be like, talk to Preston. Like, we need this to happen. Let's make it a grassroots movement to get this happening.
Thank you. I'm really ready for my like dark MCC, like punk rock style Carey play.
I love the My Chemical Romance or MCC version of that. Sounds perfect. Like, I like that a lot.
I like your blending of MCR and MCC.
Yeah, I know. I got it confused in my head.
My exact brand.
Yeah. It was the shirt, though, too, on top of it that made it. I saw the shirt and I was like, oh, and I heard it. We're live. Things happen. I can own it.
It nailed me, actually.
So you have a Carey 2 musical, which is obviously very heavily inspired by horror elements and also hilarious. And horror is obviously a big inspiration for We Are the Tigers. Are there specific films or books or TV shows in the genre that directly inspire your writing on Tigers?
Yeah, I would say that for me, like if I were to put two things together, it would be Bring It On and Scream 4 are like.
Oh,
okay.
PJ and I actually watched Scream 4 earlier this week.
Scream 4.
Yeah.
Those are the two, like, if I have to choose two things to show a collaborator to, like, lock us into the same space, those are the two things. All of Scream, but I like Scream 4 came out when I was at a very impressionable age, and I was right in the pocket of my of what I was looking for. I just think it's so brilliantly self-aware, but also quite genuine, and the horror is real, but it's so funny. That I love that tone. So those are the biggest influences. I don't think there's not much Carey influence in there. That's a different strain of my existence.
It definitely has a Kevin Williamson kind of like 90s slasher feel in the right way. When I was listening through and really like getting to know it, that was exactly what was coming off the page to me, because again, Scream is a movie for me that was like very impressionable at a young age, and listening through and hearing all the music, I was like, I love this because it feels like a musical version of that.
Thank you.
So with We Are the Tigers, you obviously wrote the music and lyrics, but you also wrote the book. And I know there are some other shows where either you didn't write the book or you co-wrote the book. How do you feel the differences in the process? Is there one you like better than the other? Do you find that when you're writing the book, it changes the way you approach the songs and the lyrics?
Yes, it's different with every collaborator. When I was younger, I was very much like, if I didn't do everything, I didn't do it. So I did the book and lyrics for a lot of projects when I was, and music and lyrics for a lot of projects when I was younger. But now I really love collaboration. And of course, there's some that don't work out. And then when it does, it's really extraordinarily helpful. So with Edward, he just has a sense of humor that I don't have. that I love. Like I love as like an audience member. So it's like, to me, it's like awesome to be able to be a part of his storytelling, and to meet him. Like he has a really high bar for what he gives me, because he essentially gives me like the book, and then we work together on how to put the songs in. Which to me is like, yeah, of course, you know, when I really admire someone's comedy, it's such a gift to be able to work with them. You know, when I was younger, I was like, oh, I need to outdo that. Oh, I need to be funnier than that. No, I'm like, no, you don't have to. You can like have healthy relationships with people as artists. And then with the way that I work with Jessica, she's also a dramaturg. We write the book together, which is not something I think people can do unless you have a very trusting relationship. So she does a lot of the historical research. It's like insane historical research. And then we'll kind of come together and figure out the best ways to communicate it through the story, through dialogue. And then also my really close partnerships are with arrangers and orchestrators, because I sheet music. I do it like I play into the, you know, in my computer, and then I sing, and then I give it to someone and they make it, you know, sound better. I do like a lot of harmonies. I'm getting better. I'm doing more. I'm very thankful for those music collaborations. Can
you write sheet music?
No, I don't want to.
Fair.
I have a great friend of mine, Kelly Thomas, I met in 2014 doing that first Tigers reading, and she has done a lot of sheet music, and I'm so blessed to have her in my life.
It is great to have a transcriber, that is for sure. It's funny because I love the songs in We Are the Tigers. There's no secret about that, but there are also some jokes and lines that have really stuck with me, like stuff about dressage medals or stuff about you had a landline this whole time. So you may say that other people are funny or you're not always going for the joke, but you can land jokes really well.
I hope that, you know, and also that's also from hearing it out loud a lot, because you hear what people respond to and you're able to like whittle down the things that people don't laugh at. But also with dressage, as I mentioned, my good Carrie friend, Karen, is also a vet and has been a horse veterinarian. And I asked her, what is a thing that what is a rich, like white girl horse thing?
Yes.
And she said dressage. So she lives very much in that project.
There you go. So finally, We Are the Tigers comes to New York. It plays St. Mark's Theater. That's how I discovered. I think that's how a lot of people discover it. What was that experience like for you?
It really, quite nerve-wracking. It happened really quickly. We did a concert in 2019, and I was thinking that was kind of going to be the farewell for the show. We had a lot of the wonderful performers who'd done it over the years, and we were raising money for Musical Theater Factory, which I love. And like that was going to be it. And, you know, a producer, Asher Gelman with Midnight Theatricals, was in the audience and ended up getting involved. And, you know, by February, that concert was in August, and by February we were off Broadway. Wow. And in December I had top surgery. So it was a really quick turnaround, and it blew by. I mean, it like shot by. But like now I'm thinking back on it, like, you know, once again, I get in my head and I stress myself out. But in this experience, I was at a point where I was able to be like, please enjoy this. Like, please look around and see that this is really special. And these people are incredible. And you're working with this wonderful group of artists. And I think a lot of it was like, enjoy this moment.
It can be so hard when you're working hard and in the moment to remember that it's to be enjoyed.
Yes.
It's a really hard thing, I think, for any human to stop and just take it in and be like, oh, this is a good thing that's happening and I can have fun with this.
Yes. And I am getting so much better at that. And Tigers, like, I had a lot of those moments, which was really good. You know, there's so many learning experiences about off-Broadway, and it's really challenging, and the budgets are really challenging, and the press is really challenging. Not being in Midtown is really challenging. But we had a team that had really high spirits, and we tried to make it really accessible. We had a lot of like pay what you can days, raise money for Trevor projects. There was a lot of like really cool, healthy things happening within the team, and not just, you know, the stress to like that it was all this like, you know, trying to make the money back and financials and how high can things be priced. And that was a really cool part of it that I appreciated. But it was, I don't know, it was interesting. I think right now, more than anything, I'm seeing a lot of people who are finding the show, and that's really cool to see. You know, I hope one day it can be seen again. I think
there's definitely a strong, passionate cult fandom for the show. And one thing I've noticed, and I'm curious for your thoughts on this, is it seems to have a particularly strong appeal to queer women and young queer women who I think see themselves in a lot of the characters in a way that's not necessarily always represented on the stage.
Yeah, I think also like a lot of non-binary and trans
Sure.
people as well. I think the reactions that I heard to that were very special to me because there is a character who is there's several characters who are queer in the show, but there's one, Kate, who is kind of actively dealing with having a crush on someone very close to her, and it's not. The show's journey has changed a lot for her, and at one point it was a big deal to the team, and that was kind of a plot point, and they were not very accepting. And then it got to a point where I felt like it was very wonderful for me to be able to believe the team would be really accepting of this character, and so her journey became much more about being, having the same experiences without the burden of struggling through queerness. That was just something that is accepted. I think there are plenty of stories where that needs to be a part of it, and I think there are plenty of stories where I just want to see queer people living and going through the same things that other people are going through. Hopefully not cheerleader murder, but it's all to say she was not like burdened by her sexuality, and I think that was maybe as healthy for some other people as it was for me to add to the show. Because it is nice to see a character who's just like has a crush on her friend, and her friend is a girl, and it's not a big deal. And I think that we just don't see that. It's like it's so small of a thing. It's like, to me, should she be queerer? And I was like, no, she is exactly as a character who she needs to be.
Right.
And this is like a joke, with a character that she should be queerer. Like Riley bursts in and she's like, "Be gay." I'm being gay. It's fine. So yeah, I think that I'm very happy with how that went, and I hope that I want to see more of that. I know it's out there. I know, TV has had a lot of headway with queer characters, and I want theater to get there too. I want to see a lot of that. There is a lot of that, especially in musical theater factory. There's a lot of queer artists, but I think that was a big connective factor. Also, I hope I'm being very honest about the struggles of, I believe it's very hard to be a young woman. I had a really hard time. Obviously, outside of being trans, it is hard. It is very difficult. And I hope some of that is very honestly expressed in the show, and people can feel that.
Yeah.
And then also be able to laugh.
I talked to a lot of people who felt very moved and impacted and very attached to the show because they saw themselves in it. And that's, I think, the best thing you can hope that your art can achieve.
That was definitely like a really, really special thing that kind of started happening towards the end of the show, and after it closed, was seeing a lot of those reactions and being like, wait, we have to do it more. We have to get it out there more.
Another element I loved is sort of the plus size character and the body positivity. She does get a little bit of slack from her teammates with some of the insults, Reese's and whatnot, but was that important to you to put in there? What made you decide that was something you wanted to include in the piece?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Tigers is it explores a trope. Like every character kind of lives in an archetype, but then deconstructs that archetype. So we really wanted to, it's there are comments from her past where she has been bullied, and she talks about it in Captain of the Team, but there are characters who are confined to that. And it was really important to me that no character was confined to their archetype, and that we got to know who these characters actually are when they're not, written off pretty quickly as one thing. That's it's been a big struggle with me. I've been watching a lot of sitcoms, and with The Office, people love The Office, and I found it to be quite uncomfortable in terms of how it treated people and size, and I was really unhappy with it. They never found the humanity in certain characters, I think, because they couldn't be past size, and I never want to do that, and especially with that character. And that was also a journey with the team and myself, and how I saw myself, and I we had such a wonderful performer in that role who killed every moment of it, and Mimi and everyone's so wonderful. Now, like, I want to name them all. It's just, to me, it's like, we see these characters, especially in horror, and you're like, oh, this is the person, this is the joke, and then they're murdered.
Right.
And I don't want to do that even for the characters who weren't alive very long, like Farah, who has that. Just be like, she's drunk, she's young, and then she's murdered. Haha, she's silly, but it's hopefully it's so much more than that, and you get to see that character so much more than that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about trying to make sure too that you're normalizing something that the media for a long time has not normalized, to your point with The Office, and not finding humanity in bigger people or even having characters of queer representation in any sort of way. Like, it felt like it was so taboo for a long time, and things like this are so important for that.
Yeah, I'm seeing more of it. Like, I even watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because it's produced by the same person who's produced a lot of stuff I really like. I was like, and they continue to do that, but I can watch them kind of figuring out that is not working and going out of that and changing character arcs. And I'm like, okay, like, this is, like, I can get through this. I can see the ways in which this is changing. And
I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine is significantly better at humanizing the characters who are the butt of the joke, but the butt of a joke in a way that is they're in on it.
Absolutely, yes. And more and more and more as the show goes on.
Yeah, especially with the queer content and Hitchcock and Sully. I think it does a great job of that.
It's quite brilliant. So I was healed by that.
So what are your hopes for the future of Tigers? I know you said you wanted to be seen again, but like, what's your big dream with Tigers?
Yeah, I think, we've gotten some outreach from theaters and stuff being like, we'd like to do it, and that is absolutely my dream. And my agent and I are in contact with people who want to do it. My website has information on how you can reach out to my wonderful agent, and we will talk you through that process. And we have gotten some outreach in the last couple months, and we're like, sure, when theater happens again, we would love you to do it. I mean, ultimately, it's a show with 9 female identifying characters, and I would really love it to be done by programs that have the cast for that. It was written to be done, it was written kind of in honor of my art school that had a very heavily female program, and did a show with many male leads, and a lot of those very talented women didn't get cast. So I would like this to be available for theaters, even if it's like a bunch of people who didn't get cast in their main stage musical and want to do it as a student production.
I think it's an ideal show for colleges to do.
That's definitely that's that's always been kind of my big thing for it, as I would love it to be available. And I'd love to see, in the way that I love Carrie, I would love to see different people's different approaches to do the role. It's very important that the certain characters are defined in certain ways, obviously, by who has to play them, but most of them are not. I don't want anyone to look at I don't want anyone to look at characters in that show and feel like they can't play them for certain reasons. I want to see a lot of different types of people in a lot of different types of roles, and that really excites me. And I think there's a lot of very, very different ways people can play the roles that are really effective and really personal. So that, even in some of the covers I'm seeing, I'm like, oh my God, that person found something I didn't know was in that song.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see more of that.
It's awesome. And it should be noted that the Brilliant Cast album is available on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you can stream it. Oh, there's a link for Spotify right there. The tunes are awesome. What I love so much about your music is it's both classically musical theater and also very inspired by punk and rock.
I think I had a Q&A on Twitter, and someone asked what my inspiration was, and I was like, Andrew Lloyd Webber smushed with Fall Out Boy.
Well, you've been doing these sort of punk covers of Phantom of the Opera songs during this pandemic that have just been delightful.
Thank you. I have to do vocals for the last 2 of them, but my roommate has a really important job for queer activism and works during the day, and I'm in my room being like, wishing you were somehow, and I'm like, I just can't do this right now. She is right next door trying to save the world. So I'll get back to that when she's on a walk or something.
Fair enough.
I have to, because I saw on your Instagram earlier, you had a picture of you as Seymour from Little Shop. Could we see something similar to that in the same punk rock style? Because Little Shop is my favorite musical of all time, and so that to me would be fascinating.
If I was smart, I would do a Patreon, and I would accept requests, because I do need money. And all my sheet music right now is donation based, pay what you can. So I'm not making money off of that, and that's totally fine with me. But I'm very happy to do anything really. I was doing some Waitress. I have a TikTok.
Oh wow!
And I did some Waitress on there. I want to complete my Andrew Lloyd Webber series. I have 5 more songs from 5 different shows that I want to put together. There is nothing that can't be punk.
I agree with that 100%.
Well, I want to touch on, I guess, I don't know if it's earlier this year or it must have been late last year, where you were doing songs inspired by movies, one-off songs. Some that people had suggested to you on Twitter, some that you would come up with, like, I know you did Tall Girl. Did you do Cloverfield?
I did Cloverfield. We didn't record it. We ended up doing it in a concert I did in Arizona. Right.
Huh.
I'm actually really proud of the Cloverfield musical. Yeah.
What were some of the other ones you did?
I love that project. The only reason that project stopped, because it stopped pretty quickly, was I ended up doing the Netflix Christmas parody.
Right, which we'll talk about.
Took all my time. So I did Sky High, Hereditary, which was a lot of fun.
Yes, I remember Hereditary. Hereditary the musical, folks.
Yeah,
That sounds
really fun.
a terrible idea, and Jesse Shelton did such a gorgeous job on that song. As a full-length musical, I would be very curious to see it, but I would never write it. I did the Witch.
Oh, yes.
The Witch. I did that one myself. That was a song I wish maybe I hadn't done. That didn't exist. Like, sometimes I think you'll die one day, and this will represent you. This will be available as part of.
Max Allen lived as he died, writing songs for the Vitch.
Good, honestly, at this point. And then, oh my God, 42 meters.
Down. The first one with Mandy Moore.
Yes, the first one.
Oh my God!
Yes,
that is incredible.
Which I'm really happy with that song. Also,
yeah, that one was fun.
Never be a musical,
but it could be a song.
Kick the crap out of that song.
Can you imagine the budget of having like a full shark water tank on stage?
Where is Julie Taymor? Get me that puppet.
Let's go.
I always want a puppet. I want a giant wire puppet for everything. I don't know. Everything I ever dream of. What else did I do? The ones we didn't end up recording were Cloverfield and Miss Congeniality.
Oh, that would actually be a good musical.
I had a good song for that. We just didn't have time to make that work. And then we did Carrie 2, and then we did the Christmas musical. So I stopped doing that. But I have a great list of things, but now I'm also doing this score now for this radio musical, so I have less. I just want people to know I am available for adaptation.
So many that I would love to actually see more of now. Like, as you keep saying them, I would, if I had money, I would just give you all my money to let that happen.
A big dream of mine, and if anyone takes this, I will sue them, is Happy Death Day.
Oh yes,
that'd be so fun. Those movies are great.
I feel extremely Happy Death Day is another one where I watch it and I'm like, oh, for tigers, like this nails a ton.
The main character is very much like Lauren Zaccharin's character.
Oh my gosh. Let's do it. But you can't do a parody musical of it because it's so smart. Like
it's sort of the great thing about Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day 2 is they're already it parodies itself in a very clever, self-aware way.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I think it could be a great musical.
Yeah.
So
I have to legitimately get the rights.
Let's talk just a bit about the Christmas musical we did. So last holiday season, Preston wrote with Edward Precht, who you mentioned earlier, a very Netflix Christmas musical now streaming, which I helped produce, and we performed it in people's living rooms.
We did. We performed it in 2 different living rooms. Hopefully the first 2 of many in the future.
Yes.
That one's a sheer delight. We wrote it very quickly. It was another one we wrote in a week. And Netflix has a star instead of an I, so legally it's okay. And it tells this tale of Vanessa Hudgens, a no-nonsense businesswoman who travels for work to a town with no Christmas, and will the Jolly Prince, trying to bring Christmas to that town, win her over?
And her who's her boss?
Andy McDowell.
Right, Andy McDowell, and her best friend is Judy Greer.
Yes. And
perfect.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And Rachel Flynn was our director on that. We have a great, lovely team on that of just such warm-hearted people who make such wonderful spaces.
The fact that you wrote those songs in a week just is astounding to me because they're so catchy and clever. Imagine if you had spent a month on them.
Oh my God. I had Cloverfield to write. Tall Girls Waiting. I can't spend a month. That was another lucky moment, I can remember a year on a song.
I remember the first time I heard about it, I was in New York in December, and Max was like, "You've got to hear one of these," and kind of just slid one of the songs. I think we were going to a show, and he was like, "By the way, you've got to listen to this." And so that was the first time I heard anything from it. We were literally walking to another Broadway show, and he's like, "I forgot to tell you, you need to see this. This is fantastic."
I am very excited for the future of that because that was our first iteration that didn't exist, this time last year. And And I think it's got very exciting ways to exist. I think I'm excited to play around with accessibility. And I think that's going to be a big part of it, is making it available to people and making it something people can, enjoy from hopefully their living rooms at one point. It's just fun. Now I have a Halloween and a Christmas musical. I'm very proud of the seasons.
Now you can write an Arbor Day musical.
Yes. Everyone's waiting for Yom Kippur.
Yes, a Yom Kippur musical would be amazing. Everyone would be so hungry because there'd be no concession stand.
It's true.
I would go crazy. I need food.
So I think we're going to wrap this up soon, but we have a list of sort of rapid fire random questions. PJ, if you want to go ahead, just
yes,
to your mind.
Okay, rapid fire. Okay.
We've got a couple of them, and one of the ones, obviously, we kind of been talking about. Your love for movies obviously has inspired a lot of that. So what is your favorite movie? Like, what is the movie that you love the most that got you into that?
It's not into them, but it's technically Donnie Darko.
I love that. Okay. That's a great answer.
I saw Donnie Darko like 12 times in 8th grade. It is just the movie that feels most familiar to me.
That is awesome. It's such a great movie. One that I love very much. And also, what's your favorite musical?
My favorite musical? Oh my God. It's so hard. I think I really love Pippin. I think that is what I will say today. I haven't
It can change on a dime. I understand that.
The themes of Pippin, I think, are the most important to me in a musical.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. Did you get to see the more recent revival of it?
Yeah, I loved that recent revival.
That was so smart, I thought.
I really love what that show explores.
So outside of that, then, what is your favorite book? And even with that, is there any other books that you would love to maybe adapt into something?
I really want to adapt Fly Away Home. I haven't read the book yet, but I know it's a book. I mean, if I say Carrie, I sound like an idiot, but I love Carrie.
Of course.
I read the Harry Potter books were so formative, and that would have been my answer, but I just can't reconcile what's going on with J.K. Rowling, and I am now consciously uncoupling from Harry Potter, so I will certainly gravitate to a new favorite book, but right now I'm floating back to Carrie in the meantime, as I do when I'm sad.
May I also suggest The Mist by Stephen King? What a great musical that could make.
I'm so ready, and books are easier to get the right.
Yeah, just throwing that out there, there's something to be said for that, I think. Yeah. But outside of that, if you weren't creating and working in theater, like, what do you think you would be doing?
I really want to be a counselor for children in juvenile detention centers.
That's awesome.
That requires a huge pivot in education, and I'd have to go back to school. And I've thought about it, and it's a little overwhelming for me right now. But
You've done a little bit of that, right?
Yeah, in 2017, I worked for 9 months at the Trevor Project, and I really, I wouldn't say enjoyed, because it was very difficult, but it was very powerful to do it. And I would like to, after I had not transitioned yet, I started transitioning while I was there, and now that I'm in like a healthier place, I would like to get back to that.
So obviously, as we've talked about, you love punk music. You love, obviously, My Chem. I can see that on your shirt. What are some of your other favorite bands and like your influences?
It's funny because I was thinking about this the other day as well on my walk, that some of my favorite artists I'm really glad are not my influences, because I don't want to feel like I have to replicate their work. I want to keep my favorite artist. Actually, my favorite artist is Regina Spektor. I've seen her a lot. I love her. Delta Ray is one of my favorite bands in the world. They're incredible. They have an incredibly versatile sound, and every time they change it up, they like knock it out. I have a Kesha tattoo. This is a Regina Spektor tattoo.
I love that. That's such a great tattoo.
So very close to my heart. Delta Ray, Kesha, Regina Spektor. Vanessa Carlton is owning my soul right now. It took me a long time to like actually listen to her discography, and I am obsessed with her. She's
I feel like she was sort of a one-hit wonder, but she actually has a lot of other really great songs that once you dive in.
1,000 Miles is not even like her third best song. It's a great song. She has like incredibly just gorgeous, spiritual.
Hey, do a Vanessa Carlton jukebox musical.
Don't play. I have it mapped out on my computer, and every day I wake up and I'm like, is this the day I tweet at Vanessa Carlton? And it has not yet been that day.
Make it that day as soon as possible. I believe, especially right now.
Actually,
the pandemic,
the problem with the Vanessa Carlton jukebox musical is she is so uniquely specific in every song that they're really hard to weave into a plot.
Sure.
Because like they are all dealing with, I think, probably very personal things that it's hard to. I would really want to work with her on it, like, and see what her thoughts were.
I love that though.
To decide to do.
All right. Well, with that, is there any last words you have tonight for the audience? Anything else that you'd like to throw out there?
This is like a health. And I think don't feel stressed out on days where it's really hard to get stuff done, and don't feel like you're not doing anything or you're not doing quarantine right. Like if you need to take it like easy, if you are able to do that, if you are in that position, like it's okay to like let something go by, or to like send an email, like if you can, being like, I just don't have the mental capacity for this right now. And then also like if you're an essential worker, I hope you're getting everything that you need. And thank you so much. And I'm so sorry that the world has put you in this position.
Yeah, I feel for all of our like frontline workers right now with everything going on, and I really hope that you guys are staying as safe as possible, because I know how fucking tough all this stuff is. I mean, I know for me, even like walking outside half the time, I live in Arizona now, and a lot of people aren't even wearing their masks anymore. Like they decided to open the state, and these people think that the virus is gone, and it's like that's 100% not even true.
It is such a small thing. And I know some people have respiratory issues, and I understand that.
Sure.
But even for them, like, wear your mask so that they can breathe.
Right, 100%.
It's such a small thing to do for most people. I'm like, just do it. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, get a fashionable one, get a cute one. I don't know. Like,
everybody is selling all sorts of printed masks with your favorite characters. Just put it on, guys.
I did one here today, and it looks not awful. It could, but like, I'm so glad that no one's grandma is in danger.
Right, because you didn't go out. You were smart. And I think your hair turned out very nice. I was following you all day, being like teasing this.
This is stage 1 of a 3-step plan. I wasn't going to justify it, but there is another dye job and a purple shampoo in my future.
Oh wow!
Ooh,
I know. I used how to do it right.
For more on that, follow Preston on Instagram.
But,
yeah.
No, I was kidding. I am very available on social media at Preston Max Allen. And some of it's lovely, and some of it is it's just very clear that I'm losing my mind a little bit. But aren't we all?
We all are right now. It's okay to, as Norman Bates once said, we all go a little mad sometimes. That's okay. Like, it's okay to get through this stuff.
If not Norman Bates, what a powerful figure to really learn from and lead from.
Quite a role model.
Quite the role model, of course. That's one for me. The Psycho movies, every version of Norman Bates is one that I always have to visit, whether it's the TV show or the remakes. Like I have an unhealthy love for Psycho, so I understand the whole being connected to Carrie thing. That's how I am with Norman. So but we'll take it for what it is. But thank you again so much, Preston, for being here. It means more.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. I hope our audience learned a little bit more about Preston's work. Like I said, check out the We Are the Tigers album on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you buy or stream music. It's an excellent show. There's also some YouTube videos of a Carrie 2 concert from 54 Below where you can watch and get a taste of that music, which is also delightful. Anything else you want to pimp before we say goodbye?
Look out for the Agent 355 concept album. Once that does arrive, the team is really wonderful and special to me, and it's kind of a different shade of my work, which I'm really happy to share.
Awesome.
I really can't wait for that. Every time you've talked about it, I just get so excited. So it's going to be so much fun. Thank you again, Preston, for being here. And I would love to have you back anytime. If you just want to come and talk, we would love to have you back.
I'm around.
Awesome. Have a great night, Preston.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right. So with that was a lot of fun. I loved having Preston here. Did you have a good time tonight?
Yeah, that was great. Preston's a great guest. He's so funny and insightful and has such a lovely, strong career already. And I really think that he's going places. And I think down the line, he's going to be one of the, I don't want to, not heroes, but one of the great musical theater writers of this generation.
He's already on a great at least in my mind, a very great trajectory for it. Like, I think that if you look at We Are the Tigers or even Carrie, because you and I were listening to it a little bit before we even came on, like the just the right trajectory. I think that he has the right voice, especially right now, because it is so different. That punk culture side of it, we don't see a lot of that in the same way that Lynn has done a lot with rap and hip hop through In the Heights and Hamilton. I think that Preston is doing something very similar with punk rock music, and I think that's
I think as the last 10 to 15 years and throughout musical theater history, but people have begun to experiment more with merging different unique genres into musical theater and what that means and what that can be. And I think it's really exciting that there are people like Preston doing that. So we will be back at the same time in 2 weeks with another very special guest who we will be announcing next week. So get excited for that and keep your eye on our social media channels. Both of our individual ones are below, and we also have at Front Center Mez for the show itself on Twitter, so follow us there. What else is coming up in the PJ Campbell Network in the next couple days?
Let's go ahead and throw back up real quick just to see some of what we've got going on. As I said earlier, we had this week's Suddenly Soundtracks. They did Singing in the Rain. If you love musicals, obviously that was part of the reason you're here. So I hope you guys will check that out if you haven't already. It is a ton of fun. On Tuesday, Evan DeGraff had another episode of Famous Last Words. It's very interesting, especially if you're a fan of the Schmodown and just kind of the culture of fan groups and stuff online. It's a very good listen. Tomorrow night, we are going to be doing a watch along for The Last Jedi. If you're a Star Wars fan or a Rian Johnson fan, you're going to want to check it out. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. And of course, something that I know Max and I are both very excited about, Atlantis, The Lost Empire on Monday, which is going to be a ton of fun. And then that leads us into June's watch-alongs. We are going to be doing all of Brad Bird's animated films, which is going to be quite a lot of fun, but also Tomorrowland, which will kind of take the last weeks of July's Monday animated spot, because we wanted to shine a light on a film that we thought kind of got a little overlooked in his filmography just in general. And I'm excited about that. But we're also going to be doing, real quick.
No, go ahead.
Also in June, Monster Month, starting with one that Max made sure that we were doing, The Host. Bong Joon-ho's The Host. We are also going to be doing, for Chris Clark's birthday, King Kong, the original, which is going to be a ton of fun. And, it was ironic we were talking about Cloverfield, because Cloverfield will also be one of our watch-alongs, and, of course, my favorite, Pac Rim. We're talking Pacific Rim, and I can't wait.
I also just want to remind everyone we have a Streamlab. Is that right? Streamlab?
Yes, Streamlabs. I've linked it a couple times.
The link's in the chat if you want to throw a couple bucks our way to help keep the lights on, as it were, for the show. I also want to remind everyone that if you have a few bucks to go to the Broadway Cares website, we put the link in the chat earlier to donate.
I'll put it in again right now, too.
Professionals who are out of work right now and could use our help. And finally, I just wanted to put out some love and light to Nick Cordero and his family, a brilliant Tony-nominated Broadway actor who has been struggling with COVID for many weeks now. Unfortunately, his wife said that his condition has taken a turn for the worse over the past few days, and we're really hoping that he can fight through it and make it past the virus.
That's been a really sobering story. A lot of people may not know, I'm one of the biggest fans of the Bronx Tale musical. Max gives me a hard time about it all the time, but that's where I discovered him. No, I know, but that's where I had originally discovered him. And so, also Zach Braff is very big friends with him, and he had been pushing on social media. And as this story has played out, it's been very tragic. He just had a son. They have a very young son. I think he's so talented, and it's just so heartbreaking seeing this kind of happen. And they'd already amputated his leg. It looked like he was on the mend.
He was doing better. He woke up. He's taking it. I don't know what's going on, but again, if you pray, whatever it is that works for you, send out some positive vibes towards him and his family. And we're really hoping Nick can get through this and fight the coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't get more real than that, unfortunately, with everything going on. So just keep positive vibes and everything else. But with that, Maxwell, I believe we are good to get out of here. Where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter right below at CinemaXwell. Instagram is at CinemaXwell Inc. And I'm frequently on the PJ Campbell Network, including our brand new show, Front Center Mezzanine, which I hope you enjoyed and will join us again in 2 weeks when we do it all over again with a new special guest.
I'm so excited. We've got a lot of really cool stuff lined up. And Max, I am just can I just say, I'm glad we're doing this together. So
Yeah.
thank you for like really being like, let's freaking do this. Yes, let's freaking do this. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at PJ_Campbell. And of course, as you guys know, you can find us here pretty much every night at the PJ Campbell Network doing all sorts of stuff. If this is your first time here, please hit the subscribe button. We would love to have you guys back. This is going to be an every other week show. Like, we want to have you guys here. We want to shine a light on theater when you may not get a chance to. I mean, one of my favorite people in the Schmodown, Justin, he was in the chat earlier. He was like, I'm in Alabama. I don't know anything about Broadway, but I'm here because your guys are doing this. And I think that's what I want to do. I want to reach people who may not necessarily get Broadway or have that access. So hopefully we're doing something cool for you guys. And I can't wait to keep doing this. It's going to be a fun journey, man.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.